Hello, we're back for our 4 o'clock class with Nanette from Chenille. We're very excited for this. We do have a little sample here of a quilt that we had on camera one that that is made with just simple lines from a printed fabric. It's actually a great way to embellish your quilts and clothing. Um, we're going to give away the USBs real quick. Jared's going to pop your name on the screen from sharing our event and commenting done, which was awesome. Thank you guys for helping us with that. As you know, the more viewers live, the more gifts that we give away. So we are going to give away a $44 Mulqueen gift card at the end of our class here today with Nanette. We are going to just ask you if you have ever tried Chenille before. That's a simple question. Just say yes or no if you've tried it, and if you have, how much you liked it. It seems to be so easy to do that we're very excited to see all of the different items that Nanette has. So at the end of this event, we'll announce the winner of our $44 Mulqueen gift card, and it is $44 because we are 44 years old as a family business. And I didn't introduce myself. My name is Darren Mulqueen, and I'm from Mulqueen Sewing Center here in Arizona. And I would like to invite in Nanette. Hi,
Hello.
Nanette. How are you?
Great. We're happy to have you in our studio today.
Thank you for having us. We do miss the Rusty Barn Show. That's usually happening at this time of year, and we always get to see you there. And so we thought this would be a wonderful way to share your product with everybody. We do have winners on the screen of our USB giveaway that we did right before. It's on the screen there, Judy Cassidy and Vanessa. All you have to do is email jer@mulqueen.com so that we can get your email addresses. There's the email to email jer@mulqueen.com, those two winners, so that you can get your gift card. And Nanette, we're going to give away one more gift card at the, those were for USB sticks, those two, Judy Cassidy. But the next winner at the very end of this segment will be for a $44 Mulqueen gift card. With that, Nanette, I do thank you so much for being here, and we're so excited to see what you've got for us. So we're going to gracefully bow out and give you the whole screen.
Thank you. We're excited to have you here in the studio. I'm going to take a few minutes, just if you're not familiar with Chenille, if you haven't used it before, I want to give you just a little bit of background of how the product came to be. My background is actually in fashion design. It's not in quilting. I studied at FIT in New York City. And back in the 90s, so this goes back a ways, when I started to do wearable art. And I came across some jackets that were made by a designer by the name of Tim Harding. And in fact, I saw his first jackets in Arizona, in Phoenix. And he was doing wearable art, and this was in the early 1990s. And his jackets were selling for $400 and $500. And they were layered with layered silk and stitched and cut. And I got fascinated with the technique. And it wasn't long before I was writing books on faux chenille. One of the first fabrics that I played with was this one. Found this on the sale table, obviously. Can't tell you how bright and ugly this fabric is. This was a rayon. So I didn't want to spend a lot of money on fabric to do this first jacket because it was 4 layers of fabric. So this was layered and stitched and cut. And this jacket is the result of that fabric. Look at the transformation from that ugly fabric to the texture that I got, and I was immediately hooked. In fact, that jacket became the cover of my first book's Variation in Chenille. My next book was New Directions in Chenille. So for quite a few years, I was doing the layered and stitched technique. I trademarked the name faux chenille and did jackets, patterns for jackets for McCall's Pattern Company. And as I was started to teach and travel all over the United States, I would go to places like California and Phoenix and to teach classes on how to make my layer jackets. And the first thing that the students would say, well, these jackets are fabulous, but they're a little warm for Phoenix, 4 layers of fabric. So I started playing with doing fewer layers and different fabrics. And I started doing jackets that were just 1 layer that were stitched and cut and still had the wonderful texture. So I realized that it wasn't the layers of fabric that you've heard all these years when you're doing layered and stitched panels and flannel quilts with 4 layers of fabric stitched and cut. It's not the multiple layers, it's the fabric that creates the texture. So if you have the right fabric, you only need 1 layer. So imagine what you could do if you had it on a roll. So when you're layering and stitching the fabric, everything had to be on a 45-degree angle. You had to have all these layers. The whole thing was chenille. Now that I have it on roll, I can put it wherever I want to. And I'm not limited to 45-degree lines. I'm not limited to an all over texture. So I'm going to take you around my studio today. First of all, we'll do some demos towards the end, but I want you to just see all the possibilities, because now you're really, the possibilities are endless. If you can dream it, you can chenille it. So I'm going to start with this baby quilt. When you think of, I always like to say that chenille is kind of like comfort food for quilters. So if you remember the old-fashioned quilts, bedspreads that your grandmother had, that was the original chenille. Was a totally different technique where threads were pulled up through the cloth and created this texture. But it reminded me of those bedspreads, and that's why our product is called Chenille It. This baby quilt, we've used both. It comes in 2 different widths. There's a 3/8 inch width and a 5/8 inch width, and we've used both widths on this quilt. The 3/8 has been used around the raw edge appliques on the leaves. We've used it on the letters. Now, if you have any questions as we go along, if you want to type your questions in, Jess will read them to me, and we'll try and answer your questions as we go along. But this is just a single layer of the product. I'm going to open one of these rolls up so we can see what we're looking at. So this is just a single layer of the bias that's laid down and stitched on the quilt. We've created a border with it. And then with the 5/8 inch, we've finished the edge instead of binding. So you don't have to do a bound edge. You're going to, instead of having a bound edge, you're going to have this really soft, wonderful edge on the quilt. And this is how simple the product is. It's a perfect bias, and it's a cotton, and it's going to bloom like this in 1 layer when it's washed and dried. When your quilt is completely finished, you're going to throw it into the washer and dryer, and it's going to bloom. This is another baby quilt. We're going to come back to this quilt after we've gone all the way around the studio. This is one of the simplest, easiest quilts that you can do. And you're not stitching all that chenille on all those blocks. You'll be surprised how easy and fast that quilt is to do. One of the quilts that I did one year for Houston, the big show, International Quilt Festival that's in Houston Market and Festival, was this Peter Pan quilt. And the original quilt was all done with raw edge applique. And then we added the chenille over the raw edges, and it was designed to show people just how creative you could be with the product. And everybody wanted the pattern. But there are so many pieces, so many applique pieces, that it was really difficult for me to offer this as a pattern. So what we now have done, My daughter is designing a storybook series. This was the first storybook quilt. It's called We Can Fly, and the entire quilt was pre-printed digitally onto a fabric. So it's a fabric panel. And then you just follow the lines, but it's like paint by number. And you follow the lines, so the chenille on all the lines, and it still looks, once you're finished, it looks like this quilt is all appliqued. So if you can see the houses and Big Ben and all those houses and the clouds look like they're appliqued onto the quilt, but this is just a pre-printed panel. So that's how easy and fast it can be. And below the quilt, we have a pillow that was designed to coordinate with that quilt. Now this pillow is available as a pattern. It's our dream pillow pattern. And this is all done with raw edge applique. And all the edges of, you'll also notice that around the edge of the pillow, it's not bound and it's not turned. It is also finished with the chenille. And it gives you this really soft edge to your pillow. And the bonus to and it also makes it easier. You don't have to turn your pillow. You're not going to have a bulky seam. Your points are always going to be perfect. Your corners are always going to be perfect. And you have this soft edge. It almost looks like the chenille is like a chenille piping, but that's just the finish of the chenille on the quilt. Another thing that we've done with the, if any of you have ever done the stack and whack or the one block wonders, we actually did this quilt. I don't have the room in here to open it up and show you the full quilt, but I just wanted you to see the amazing hexagons that it makes if you do that as a one block wonder and then put all those blocks around the center quilt. Really makes a fabulous quilt, and all the edges of the hexagons are also finished off with the chenille. That's just raw edge. You don't have to seam your hexagons together, so it makes it a lot easier to do a one block wonder quilt. One of our most popular patterns is this butterfly garden quilt, and this is a whole cloth quilt that's done with raw edge applique. And so all the appliques are just laid down on your whole, this size is actually about 60 inches fabric and about 1 3/4 yards of fabric. And you just lay your butterflies and flowers out where you want them. You can see how fun it is to add vines and leaves. The vines and leaves are just the applique. And now if you have a long arm machine, I actually did a 1 hour video with Handy Quilter that you can find on YouTube. And you can see where you can actually quilt and lay your chenille down at the same time on your long arm. And we did that on the Handy Quilter live show. So there's almost all the things that you're seeing today, you can either do on your domestic machine or you can do it on your long arm. Another thing that we've done with the butterfly garden is a name pillow. And those are fun to do if you have a grandchild or want to do their name on a pillow. They love the texture and the feel of the chenille. You can even get them involved with making it because they love the magic of seeing it before it's washed and then seeing the magic that happens when it comes out of the washer and dryer. All of the quilts that you're seeing today have just been in the washer and dryer one time. Okay, one wash, one dry. The key to washing your quilt and having a successful texture like you're seeing on these quilts is washing it if possible, in an agitating washing machine. Now, if you don't have, an older machine that has the agitator in it, put something in with it. Put a pair of tennis shoes in with it. Put some towels with it. I mean, you don't want to put it on gentle cycle. It's the washing that releases those fibers and gives you the texture. So if you have any questions as we go along, just let us know and we'll try and answer them as we go along. Sometimes you'll come across a fabric that is just fabulous by itself. And this little wall hanging is an example of that. This is one of the current, more recent lines of Tula Pink. And this was just a wonderful print, had these big flowers and leaves on it. And I just couldn't even imagine cutting this up. So I just took the chenille and went around the flowers, went around the leaves. I used another one of her striped prints to create a border that looks like its piece, but that's just really a striped print that I've added the chenille to. And she actually has this print, I think, in a wide width, so that you can even make that, you could make that a bedspread if you wanted to.
You just got a question, are the leaves chenille, and asked for a close-up, so I'm going to go close up.
Yeah, she'll give you a close-up of those leaves. You can see how I've gone around the leaves with different colors. To anytime you want to accent something and you want it to stand out, if you put a row of chenille around it, it's just going to make that flower or that leaf or that design pop. This is just her fabric as it is. And once you've added that chenille, don't these flowers look like they're appliqued? I mean, it really looks like the flowers and leaves have been appliqued onto a background fabric, but that's just the print. Okay, so now we'll move down to a couple of other possibilities. This next pattern is called the wonky zigzag pattern. And this is a fun quilt to do. I mean, you can actually do this whatever size you want. We've done this as a baby quilt. There is not one seam in this quilt. The background color is one piece, the pale green, and the wonky zigzags are raw edge applique. And so that's one big, the template is in the pattern to do this. You can make that wonky zigzag whatever width you want it to be, and it's going to be one continuous piece. So it's a great pattern for a print that, you know, a novelty print. You're not going to be chopping that print up and having seams in it. It's going to be you're going to see one continuous line. So you have your background fabric, you just lay down your raw edge applique and then cover that raw edge with the chenille. You add another row in the center. And because this is a wonky design, it's an easy one to quilt on your home machine, or even when you're on your long arm too. You want that quilting to not, those rows don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be even, because that's the whole look of the quilt. And then instead of binding, the edges again is finished with 5/8 inch chenille. So you have this nice soft edge, and it's a lot faster and easier than binding, and it gives you a soft edge. And we'll be demoing that at the end so that you can see how fast and easy that is. Another panel that has been really popular, and a lot of you may have, I mean, it just seems, and they've done it in every color imaginable, is this Dream Big panel. And it's just a big flower. But it's wonderful if you want to play with quilting and do a lot of fun custom stitches on your quilting. And that's what people had primarily been doing with it. This is the panel. I wanted you to see, if Jess can stand back far enough for you to see kind of that whole flower. That's what the panel looks like without the chenille on it. It's just a digital print of a flower. But it has kind of a watercolor effect to it. And so this is one time where I don't just put one layer of chenille on. And on this quilt, she can do some close-ups on this so you can see on the petals of the flower that it has kind of a variegated look to the chenille. So what I have done on this quilt is I have white 3/8 on top of all the petals, but I've added a color underneath on the different colors of the petals as they go out. And start with lavender on the outside, and then as we go in, there's hot pink, and then it changes to pale pink. And all these colors are added, but it's very subtle because I have white on top of all those colors. So you're not just getting a real bright color, you're getting, it's more of a watercolor effect on the chenille. And so this is one time where I actually do use 2 layers, but it's for color effect. And I've also used 2 colors on the edge. I've used the 5/8 white on both sides, but on the top I also stitched a 3/8 inch lilac on top of the 5/8 inch white, and it puts this stripe in this color into my border. So it's not just a solid, it gives you that much more detail. So there's so many ways you can play with it and do fun different things. This pillow is another example of just finding a fun print that you really want to pop and to have texture and dimension. So this was just a home deck print that I found. I used the chenille around the flowers and on the leaves. Again, I finished the edges with it so that I have a real soft edge on that pillow. I don't have to turn it. I'm going to have a perfect edge on my pillow every time. So we'll see some more home deck things as we go along. One of the things that I really love to do is take traditional quilting techniques and make them easier, and also just give them an entirely new look. I've always been fascinated by the stained glass technique, but it can be very tedious. The black lines of the stained glass have traditionally always been done with a very narrow black bias that has to be stitched down, turned under and stitched down on both edges. Very time consuming. I'm all about trying to make it a little faster and easier. Plus, I love what the chenille does to this stained glass design. It really makes that rose come alive. It gives it dimension. It gives the leaves dimension. And you could take any stained glass design and apply this technique, and I think you'll really love the results using what used to be a very traditional technique and giving it a new look. Get out of the way here so Jess can get back and really give you a full view of this. This is one of my favorite newer panels that is designed by Create Joy for Moda. And this is another pre-printed panel that they did one for Christmas. I had said, have yourself a merry little Christmas in the middle with poinsettias around it. That was done by Lila Boutique. Yeah, Lila Boutique. But this is a Create Joy. This is perfect for Valentine's. It's coming up. You are so loved. And you can see I've just outlined the words with the white chenille, and it really makes those words stand out. And this one was an especially fun one to do because it had so many flowers and leaves, and adding the chenille, all the different colors. Chenille comes in 23 different colors, so you can really play a lot with colors and combining colors in your quilts and in whatever you're doing. But the panels are especially fun. The other different detail that I've done on this, on this one, I do have a traditional binding, and then I've added a 3/8 inch bias on top of that seam, and it just frames my quilt, and it just gives it that final detail that it wouldn't have if I had just left it with just the binding. So it gives it that additional detail. I'm going to go back for just a second. For those of you who like to do clothing and like to sew clothes and handbags, there's so many ways that you can use the chenille on clothing. The jacket on the dress form is the Cherish jacket pattern, and that I've used two different sizes of chenille on this jacket. So here I have the 5/8 on this part of the design, and this design is actually taken from like a traditional old-fashioned chenille bedspread, the kind of design you would see on old-fashioned chenille. And so this is the 5/8 inch. Inside those designs, I've used a 3/8 inch chenille. And I'm going to pull this bag off so I can show you the front. And here again, the other thing that you can do with the chenille is eliminate a lot of your construction. So I don't have facings or hems or anything that I have to do on my jackets. I just have my side seam, shoulder seam, sew the sleeve in, and then all the edges are finished with the 5/8 chenille, just like we were doing on the quilts. So you can really, you save a lot of construction, and it just makes the jacket nice and lightweight. And has a beautiful drape. It's fun to use on handbags. This is a handbag that's done on pre-quilted muslin. So all you have to do is sew the chenille, follow the lines. And this is a fun example, again, of using 2 layers. So again, I'm using 2 layers here, not for the extra texture, but for the coloration. So I have a natural on top and a color underneath on each one of these scallop rows. And again, just you save a lot of construction. When you do your straps, you don't have to turn your straps. The seam is to the outside. You don't have to turn it. You're not going to have a bulky seam. And then you just cover that with the chenille, and your strap is done. So lots of ways to use it on handbags. I just put a couple of handbags out. She can show you quickly. You can do fringe with the chenille. You can use it in so many different ways on handbags and pillows. So I just wanted you to see a couple of possibilities of what could be done. The black one. Oh, do you have a question?
When you're done with the handbags, you're getting a question about the name of this panel over here.
Oh, do you remember?
Yep,
Jess?
it's the You Are So Loved by Create Joy.
And that's a motive panel. That's perfect for this time of year. You still have time to do that for Valentine's. And that the last bag she's showing you is done on a piece of home deck fabric. And I've done, just followed the lines on that. I think that was just kind of a fun print and appliques. You can just really play with it. Another quilt that I did, this is also available as a pattern. This is Woodland Fantasy we did for Riley Blake. This is one of their woodland collection that we did for Market one year. And I love to design quilts that really are designed for the fabric collection. And this one had the owls and the deer. And so we added all these woodland animals to this particular quilt, and you can really see how the chenille makes the owls, the owls' eyes and their wings, and you do detail and put their feet on the tree. And my favorite part is the little fox, because he really comes alive as he's peeking around that tree. And as she pulls back and you see the full view of that quilt, one of the flowers that go around the outside of that quilt, this whole quilt is raw edge applique. And so we'll also be demoing that at the end, so you can really see how we're finishing that with the that's all done with the 3/8 inch bias. And these flowers are done in the same way as the next quilt we're going to look at, where the center of the flowers are cut out and then they're switched out. So you'll see the center from one flower somewhere else on the quilt inside of another flower. But you're not getting layers and layers of creating layers and layers of fabric. You're keeping the weight of your quilt nice and finishing all those edges with the raw edge. Do you have a question?
Yep, Lori wants to know, do you sew just one center seam on it?
On the chenille, yes. You're always stitching down the center of the tape, because what's going to happen when it's washed are those two edges the fibers are going to release and those edges are going to come up, and that is what's creating the texture. So your stitching disappears. Once it's washed and dried, you're not going to see that stitching. It's just going to go away. This is probably my favorite pattern. This is the Venetian windows. And if you get a chance to make this quilt, it's really fun to do. The design on the block, the Venetian window, is actually done when the template is cut almost like a snowflake. You take a square, fold it in quarters, and cut that out. And when this one I will be demonstrating too at the end, so you can see how easy that is to do. But when you open up that template, you're going to cut. Your template is just a quarter of it right here. And when you open it up, you cut on this edge, and then you cut on this edge. And when you open that up, you're going to have an outside and an inside piece. Does that make sense? So, and this is another one where you start with your back block, lay down your outside print, and then you're going to switch out these centers. So if you look at this quilt from a distance, you will be able to see where, the inside of this piece is now in the center of this one. So it's really fun to lay out and play with those squares and mix those prints around. And then all those raw edges and I don't like to have to be too careful when I sew then you're just going to sew your blocks together. I've taken another piece and sewn over those intersections. And this is another raw edge applique. And so you can't tell if I did all my perfect corners on this quilt.
Pam wants to know, would you quilt before or after adding your chenille?
I like to quilt after. I mean, on all the quilts that you're seeing today, the chenille is all put on first, and then it's quilted. And I love to do, some fairly intricate quilting, especially on a quilt like this one. But it's easy to quilt. I mean, you've got the chenille on there, but when I'll quilt around here, and then I'll come in here and quilt all the way around here. And then I'll come inside and do my fancy quilting inside. And then I just go back out. I mean, you can cross over these lines and it's still going to bloom. But you don't want to do this heavy of a quilting on top of the chenille, or it won't bloom. If you prefer to do edge to edge, a lot of customers have done this quilt with an edge to edge quilting. You just want to pick an edge to edge design that isn't too dense. I mean, it will bloom up around the chenille. So you can quilt it either way.
And then Brenda's asking, how well does it stand up to multiple washes?
Well, the jacket that you saw, the cherished jacket that I showed you on the dress form, was one of my first I've been wearing that jacket for at least 10 years, to every market, every show that I go to, and it just gets better and better and softer. So it washes and washes really well. Another one that's fun, if you have a boy, there aren't a lot of boy quilts out there, but this one is really, really fun. And you can personalize it. And that's another thing that's fun about the chenille. You'll see on the baseball caps, did this for my grandson. And so I have his initials on the quilt, both with the applique and then on the baseball caps. This is all done again with raw edge applique. All of the squares on this one, this isn't pieced. This square isn't pieced with strips. This is just a square on top of a solid block. So you can have things like stripes and plaids, and you're not going to have seams that are going to break it up and have to worry about matching them or anything. Makes it really fast and easy to do. We've got all the different, the baseball and basketball and football all on there. So that's a fun boys quilt. This is another one where we've used 2 layers on this block right here. You can see this again. Now this is pieced. And on that seam, we have a 5/8 inch navy with a 3/8 inch gray on the top. And look what a wonderful texture that gives you. All the rest of the blocks have 3/8 just around the blocks. And then we've finished the edge again with the 5/8 inch chenille. Now going back to wearables, another pattern that's available is I can't believe it's a sweatshirt. This was a pullover sweatshirt. I'm going to flip this around and show you the front. So this is a pullover sweatshirt that's been cut open down the front. I have cut the ribbing off of it. And if you've ever tried to do finish a scalloped edge before, it's really not that easy to do. But, let's close that. I need to look in my storage room. It's a very easy way to finish a scalloped edge because I'm just, again, stitching the 5/8 inch on both sides. And the other thing that I've done on here to give all this extra coloration, to make these swirls, I've taken the 5/8 inch. And if you put that 5/8 inch bias through your ruffler foot, it's going to put little pleats in it. And then it makes it possible to take that 5/8 and make really tight twirls and swirls like this. And then on top, I have a 5/8 inch black, a 3/8 inch cinnamon, and then a nubby yarn. And I've stitched all 3 of those down at the same time. So I can really create wonderful colorations by layering chenille and yarn and fibers. This is another great way to, if you have an embroidery machine, you can really personalize this quilt and add text on the front. I'm a material girl in a material world, and another embroidered panel on the back. So combine, it's a wonderful way to combine the different techniques that you like to do, whether it's machine embroidery or fiber art, anything like that. Now going back to my days when I was doing layered and stitched jackets and rayons, I've always, the only jackets that I ever do where I'm doing multiple layers is with rayons. It's because anything else gets way too heavy. So everything I did for McCall's was done with rayons, and all my wearable art. So when the fabric companies started, just in the last few years now, the companies are starting to do a lot of their prints in rayons. So this is a Kate Spain from Moda. Her batiks are very popular. And last year she did her whole series of batiks in rayon as well as cotton. So, I mean, you can almost see just by the way that quilt moves, how much soft. I mean, I wish you could feel this quilt because it is so soft and luscious, and you're only going to get that kind of a feel with rayon. So you can even do rayons. The key to working with rayons, if you want to do piecing like I've done on this quilt, and do the raw edge applique, is to spray your fabric with spray starch and make it stiff, and then make your quilt. And then when you wash it, all that spray starch goes away, and you're left with this wonderful soft drapey quilt. So that's, if you want a quilt that's really cuddly and wonderful. You know, pick up some of these new rayon prints and make it into a quilt.
Do you know if Mulqueen's carries your books?
My books, unfortunately, I mean, I did the layered and stitch technique books. I did a long time ago, but you can still find them on Amazon. But they are out of print. The patterns, Mulqueen's has all the patterns, so you can get all the patterns with the instructions for all these different quilts at Mulqueen's. One of the traditional designs for quilting is the half square triangles, zigzag quilts. So this is our ziggy quilt, but in fact, you can even take a quilt if you have made a zigzag quilt in the past, but you really want those zigzags to pop and have some dimension. Take some rows of chenille and just throw some rows of chenille on there, and look what that does to that zigzag quilt. So that's a really fun, easy quilt to do, and adding the chenille just gives it a totally different look. Just quickly, this is a small version of the pullover sweatshirt that I did, but in it for a child. So that's, again, just a pullover sweatshirt, and all the edges are finished. Even the loops for down the front of the jacket are made out of the chenille. And a fun pillow. Any more questions? Are we still good?
Nope, we're still good.
Okay. Another source of fabric that you see everywhere now is home deck fabric. And a lot of the home deck fabrics have prints on them that are great to give the look that you've done. Again, make it look like you've pieced it, but you didn't really. So this is, these are 2 home deck prints that I just followed the lines on the print and made it almost look like I've pieced that. And this pillow, I'll pull this up from the floor so we can see it a little bit better. This pillow is done the same way. This design is just pre-printed on this fabric. It's just a print. But by adding the chenille on there, doesn't that look like an orange peel design that's been appliqued on there? And then again, the edge is finished. So fast and easy home deck projects, and those are fun for gifts. Really easy, fast gifts to do. Another bag that has some chenille on it with appliques over the top, just to give you more ideas of how you can layer it. You can put the chenille down first and then put an applique over the top and do some embellishing, thread painting, do some stitching on it. So you can get as detailed as you want on a project. This is another sweatshirt jacket that I'll show you just really quickly. Again, because it's something that you can take, some of your fun embroidery designs. I've machine embroidered the front of this. This was a zipper front sweatshirt that I cut the hood off of. And then this is also in the I Can't Believe It's a Sweatshirt pattern, teaches you how to do this fringe. This fringe is all made out of 3/8 inch chenille. How fun is that? And then you take the hood that you cut off and make it into a matching bag. We don't waste anything. We use everything. Okay, one of this quilt goes back a ways too. This little quilt, Bird on a Wire, this is also available as a pattern. This is done with rayon applique. It was on the cover of Quilt Mania magazine. It's been a few years now since that was on the cover, but it is one of our cover quilts. Most of the quilts that you're seeing today have been in Quilt Mania. The Bird on the Wire is fun because it has the look of the quilts hanging on the clothesline, and the chenille is what's giving it that vintage touch. So that's just really a fun wall hanging. If you want a small, fast, easy project to do, that's a fun pattern to pick up. Now the next quilt is, again, another very traditional quilting technique, the hexagons. If any of you have done hexagons with English paper piecing, you know how time consuming that can be. I started doing some paper piece hexagons, and I didn't have to do very many to know that I didn't want to do very many because they were so time consuming. I had to get on to my next project. So this is a quilt that I will show you again when we do the step-by-steps. There really aren't any hexagons in this quilt. This pattern is called Hexagon, G-O-N-E. And so the only real true hexagon is the one that is in the center of my grandmother's garden. So it's fun to see how we create that. The look of all those hexagons, the look of all those hexagons is just done with the 3/8 inch bias. And actually, if you're familiar with the traditional grandmother's garden quilts, you do all these hexagons and then you sew them all together by hand so that that outside piece is just one solid flower, and you really almost lose the shape of your hexagons. But with the Chenille, now I'm really seeing the shape of all those hexagons. So I really love being able to do get that look in it, but make it a little bit faster and easy to do. We've got a couple of pillows here to just show you a couple of things you can do with pillows. This one is done with just a bunding style, but they can be loose. You're just taking strips of fabric and sewing the chenille on and then cutting your triangles. So a lot of fun things you can do with bundings. The eyes on the owl pillow are done the way we did the swirls on the black sweatshirt jacket. On this, it hasn't been washed because I wanted to see the pleats. So, you can see the pleats on this and see the texture that it gives. And then on the eye in the center, I brushed it. And so we'll show you how that you can hand brush things. If you want to put the chenille on something that you don't want to wash, you can just brush it with a little brush. So that works really slick. And you can do projects as small as this little zipper bag, this little bag. And here again, I've used pleated fabric underneath with the chenille on top to give it extra texture. So layering things with the chenille can be fun too. So you can do very small project, use up all your scraps, use up all your little pieces of chenille. Another thing that if you've been quilting very long that you see everywhere, and there are hundreds and hundreds of quilting stencils. So this is this quilting, the stencil quilt. And the thing that's wonderful about quilting stencils is they are continuous line. They are designed to make it easy to quilt your quilt. You just follow that line, one continuous line, to do your quilting on your quilt. So I have taken those 2 different quilting stencils on this particular quilt and marked my block with the quilting stencil with the chalk. And then all I had to do was follow that line with my chenille. And when you come to there's no right or wrong side to the chenille. That's the other thing that everyone asks is there a right or wrong side to it? Because when you get a roll of chenille, every once in a while you'll come to a seam, and people are worried, do I have to have that seam down, or can it be, do I have to cut it out? No, you just sew right over it and it all blooms. Those go away when it's washed. But when I come to a corner or a point, all I have to do is flip and keep going, because there's no right or wrong side. So you just flip it and turn and flip it and turn. And you can do as you can see, very intricate patterns with the chenille, and the chenille itself becomes the design of your quilt.
Lori had a question. Are there any types of fabrics that you should avoid putting chenille on?
I haven't found any. Like I said, I think I've put it on everything. I have put it on wool. I did a beautiful wool quilt for a customer that was very detailed, and on that one I brushed it rather than washing it. So that would be the only thing you'd have to be careful of. If and on the rayon, if you were to look at the care label on rayons, it always tells you to dry clean your rayons. Well, all my jackets and that quilt, that's been in the washer and dryer. You can wash rayons. You can wash wool for that matter. If you're going to put it on something that you think it's going to shrink, just pre-wash the fabric so that it has its shrinkage, and then you can put it on anything. I put it on silk. You just that's the fun of it. Oh, we've got a couple of smaller, really quickly, a couple of smaller panels, pre-painted panels. These are very popular right now. These are from Susie B. And here again, you can just see how that brings these little creatures to life, the little bugs. This is, you're just going to swirl that around, start in the center, and that's the 3/8 inch on the bugs. This little elephant quilt was a lot of fun to do because all I did was outline the areas, the things on the quilt that I really want, the panel that I really wanted to stand out. I mean, and it just makes these little mice, and it gives them character. It makes them come alive. And the clouds, it makes your clouds pop. It's just such a fun way to add dimension to your quilts. And you can even put it on things like these were just some dish towels that I found that I thought, oh, how fun to put some chenille on that flamingo and on the water. It just makes the whole thing have a lot more interesting and have a lot more texture to add the chenille to it. Okay, we're just about around the studio. The quilt that we have on this couch is another what I call cheater fabric. So this is a fabric by Moda that's called Lollies, and it is just a bolt of fabric with stripes on it in all different colors. And all I did, I'll show you what this fabric looked like before. We'll do the step by step in a minute, but it's just rows of stripes like that I've cut apart and just sewed the rows together the other direction, and it makes it look like this is all piece, but it's not. And then all I've done is sewn over those edges to make it look like it's pieced, but I didn't have to do any piecing on it other than sewing the rows together. So a lot of the things that it makes a lot of things really fast and easy to do. This is a fun quilt called, the pattern for this is Let Freedom Sing. On this one, I've done it in red, white, and blue. The stars again are done like the Venetian window, where the inside of the star is cut out, and then you move that around to the other stars. The buntings in the center of the quilt are done with rows of fabric, and then you cut your triangles, and that's just raw edge applique onto the quilt. So it's easy to do a bunting design like that, and then go around your center and your outside edge with the 3/8, and it just kind of puts a frame on everything. On this chair, you can see how different it looks in a different color story. So it doesn't have to be red, white, and blue. The buntings are so fun in a lot of different prints that you could make that, whatever theme or whatever color palette you wanted to do on that particular quilt. And that's a fun quilt to make. You don't always have to go around appliques on this nautical quilt. This is another pattern. And the template for both the appliques for the sailboats are raw edge applique, but the anchor is, all you do is trace that, draw that design on your block, and then it's kind of like the template quilt where you're just going to follow, that's just one continuous line, and you just stitch the 3/8 around that anchor, and you have that anchor design on your quilt, and it's not applique or anything, it's just the design by itself. So you can create a lot of fun shapes on your quilts just with the applique by itself, the chenille by itself. Now, if any of you have ever done rag quilts, this is what I do instead of rag quilts. The problem I have with rag quilts, again, you've got all those layers, so it's making a really heavy quilt. I can have 4 quilts out of the same amount of fabric by just piecing my blocks together. Sewing, this is the 5/8 inch that I've sewn over my seams. I don't have to clip that. I'm not going to have a mess because this is perfect bias. This isn't going to make a mess like a rag quilt does. And then I can add appliques over the top of that and put some chenille on that if I wanted to add more interest to it. And then my edges, again, are all finished with the 5/8. Again, I don't have to clip it. I don't have to cut it. I'm not doing all of that cutting. When you do all of that cutting on a rag quilt, the rag quilts are all done with straight of grain blocks. So you have to clip it to get any kind of texture at all. But when you clip it, you're releasing all of those threads. So that's why you get the mess that you do in your washing machine when you wash the rag quilt. But this, you're not going to have that with this, and you're going to have that wonderful texture without any of the work. You just sew it on and you're done. This is another little child's jacket. Again, you can do, this has just got a little lattice design on, this is a single layer of the 5/8 for the design on the jacket. And then again, all the edges are finished with the 5/8. So there aren't any hems or facings or anything on this quilt. All the edges are finished with the 5/8. Word quilts are really popular right now. To do whatever, quilt or inspire, and this is just another one that's done with raw edge applique. There's a website called Rapid Resizer that you can go in and pick your font and print that and make it whatever size you want, and then just do that that's just raw edge applique, and then the edges are finished with the chenille. So if you want, something for your sewing room or for a child's room, you could do the same thing with the name, or something in a family room if you want to do love. There are so many things right now where you can do words. You can do it on a pillow. Lots of fun things you can do with words, and you can make it whatever size you want, and then just do all the finishing with the chenille and have that texture. This is the second quilt in our storybook collection that Erin designed. And this is the story of the Princess and the Pea. So this was really a fun one for her to design. It has some wonderful prints and designs on her layers of quilts that she's sitting on with her cat. And that's just really, and then the other thing that she did with this, so that's all pre-printed. All you do is stitch the chenille onto the designs, and you can have a lot of fun playing with that because you can make it as intricate or as detailed as you want, as much chenille on it as you want on all those quilts. And then this actually has, and you can do this with any print. This print happens to be coordinated to this quilt, but if you have a striped fabric, you can take that striped fabric and just stitch chenille on the lines. That's what we've done on this pillow. So this pillow looks like it's all pieced, but it's just that printed fabric with chenille on it. And we've done the same thing around the border so that the border looks like it's pieced, but that's just the lines of chenille that gives it that effect. You can write with it. So on another version of that quilt we have on the bottom, where we have Once Upon a Time on the bottom panel. And that's all just done with the 3/8 inch chenille. So I hope that has given you just an idea of the possibilities. Do we have any more questions before we get into the step-by-step? Okay. Let's start with the hexagon here, because that's just handy. Here you can see what the shape of that hexagon is. And that template is in the pattern, but it's basically just the outside shape of the grandmother's garden. So you have a pieced block on the back. The raw edge appliques go on top of that. And then on this flower right here, you can see where I have stitched the bias down. And hopefully you can see how that's just, all that is stitched down the center of the tape. And when I get to a corner, all I've done is flip it. So you just go all the way around that outside edge and then just sew your lines for your hexagons and you're done that fast. So that's a fun and easy quilt to do. The baby quilt that I was showing you when we started looks like it's all done with small blocks, 4.5-inch blocks. And when you look at the quilt, it looks like, well, here's a smaller version of it. I haven't stitched the chenille on all those little blocks. You start with one big long strip of fabric. This particular fabric was a waffle cloth and it was 60 inches wide. And you'll notice that I did tear those strips rather than cutting them. And you'll see why I did that in a minute. So this waffle cloth has a texture to it and it has lines on it. And so once I've torn that, then I'm just going to take the color. I've done these quilts with 3 different colors. So I have green on the outside, yellow, and hot pink. And one of the reasons why I've used the waffle cloth is it gave me a line to follow, which is kind of cheating. You could do the same thing with the stripe, or if you have a fabric like a flannel or something that doesn't have a line on it, if you'll just press that center line, then you can do your 2 outside edges and your center one, and then it's easy to sew the other 2 in between. So once you have that whole thing stitched down, the full width, it's just going to look like this. You're going to have your 5 rows of chenille, and then you cut it into blocks. So then I cut that into 4.5-inch blocks and sew it together, and it's super easy to piece that together. This is a 4.5-inch block, so this is a great quilt to just stitch in the ditch for your quilting. That's the only quilting you really have to do. And then I'm going to show you on this smaller project how I'm finishing. Again, the edges are finished with the 5/8 inch. And that goes really, this is what that quilt looked like before. I've demonstrated on this so many times that it's practically chenilled from touching it. But you can see that, that's how it looks before it's washed. It's when it's washed that all the magic happens. Okay, so this is just this is another project that a lot of people are doing right now. That's just a microwave bowl holder. So when you're getting things in and out of your microwave and they're hot, you can pull that out of the microwave and won't burn yourself. The way people have traditionally been making this, I mean, you just start with 3 pieces. You have your 2 pieces of fabric and batting. You want to use a cotton batting. Everything has to be cotton that goes into the microwave. Don't use anything that has other fibers in it. And you just layer that. And now, most instructions are going to tell you to sew that with the right sides together and turn it. Well, we're sewing it with the right sides out, just like this. And then we're going to put the pleats in it and serge that edge. You can either serge or zigzag that edge. And this is going to be the same technique that you'll use whether it's this little bowl holder or whether it's a quilt or whether it's the edge of a pillow. You put the wrong sides together, your right sides are out, and either, trim it so it's nice and clean finished, and then either serge or zigzag that edge. And once that's done, you're going to sew the chenille on both sides. I like to start on the back first. I stitch it on the back, and you want to have the chenille extend about 1/8 of an inch beyond your serged or zigzagged edge. And you sew it on the back first, all the way around. When you come to a corner, you don't do anything fancy. You just whack it off and keep going all the way around. Just whack that off and start again across that corner. And then once the back is on, when you turn it over, because you've extended it that 1/8 of an inch, you'll be able to see that from the top and just follow that. Just line the front up with the back, go all the way around, and you're done. And that's true whether it's a quilt or a pillow or something as small as this, or the edge of a jacket. I mean, it's the same technique for all of those different things. I'm going to go back. The last thing I want to show you is the Venetian window, the raw edge applique quilt. And this is the same technique that you'll do on all the quilts that have a raw edge applique. And you can see here where I still have the raw edge of my applique. Now you're going to stitch that raw edge down close to the edge, and I like to use about a 1.5 stitch length. You want to make sure that's stitched down, and I don't fuse my appliques down. It just has to be there long enough for me to stitch it down. So what I prefer to do, because I don't like the feel of the if I'm putting it on a pillow or something, I will often use a fusible web to put down my appliques. But on a quilt, I don't want that feel in the hand of my quilt. So I just use a water-soluble glue stick like you would have for a child. It needs to be water-soluble. You just glue that down so that it's down long enough for you to stitch it down close to the edge. And you'll notice on the inside of this one, I have a double raw edge. So I have a raw edge for the outside piece and a raw edge for the inside piece. Both of those need to be stitched down. And once those are stitched down, I am going to come back with the 3/8 inch bias and just cover that raw edge. And again, I'm just stitching down the center of the tape and putting the edge of the chenille just past my raw edge so that I don't want to see any of my raw edges. If I'm doing, and you can turn corners two different ways. If you have a really sharp corner, you can go off and cut it and then start again and come down. That's what I've done on these two corners. But then as you come around, you'll notice that when I came down to this corner, all I did was flip it. So that's kind of a design choice for you. If you find out, I mean, on the center ones, I prefer to cut it and lap it over because you're actually covering two raw edges here, not just one. So you want to just make sure that those edges are covered. And the other thing that's wonderful about the chenille is you get your whole quilt made and you throw it in the washer and dryer and you pull it out. And say you pull it out and, oh, shoot, I can see part of my raw edge somewhere. So all you do is pull that chenille that's already fluffed up back, take another little piece, sew over there, brush it, and that's where the brush can come in handy. The only time I really brush the quilt is if I'm putting on something that I don't want to wash, or, you know, maybe I have a newer washing machine that doesn't want to rough it up the way I like it to. So I'll take the brush and I'll give it a little more brushing. I mean, I can just brush the edge of that and you can see how easy, see how that releases the fibers. And then I can just spritz that a little bit and throw it in the dryer again. And that will just blend in with the rest of the chenille so you can go back and fix things if something shows a little bit. So that is our trunk show. Oh, I forgot to tell you about one thing. The jacket I have on is also made with chenille. Okay, and this is made with the 5/8 inch chenille on water soluble stabilizer. And this is the lattice jacket pattern. There's another jacket right here that's made with that same technique. You can basically take any jacket pattern that you love and make it just out of chenille, and it's perfect for Phoenix because excuse me, I need to get a drink. But I mean, it actually has holes in it, so it's not hot. You know, I say it's perfect for restaurants. It's a great restaurant jacket when you can go to restaurants again. And they put you under the air conditioner because it's just enough of a jacket to be cozy. But so, and I've also done the lattice jacket on the long arm. So you can load your water soluble stabilizer onto your long arm machine and do a jacket, do this jacket on your long arm. Questions?
Yes. Can you explain how to do the writing and the cursive one more time?
Okay, that's another time when I go to the Rapid Resizer is a great place to do that because there are cursive choices that you can pick from. I mean, if you want to do it in your own writing, you could even do your own handwriting. Just draw that on your quilt because you're going to cover that line up with the chenille. So you could even just draw that right on your quilt. And that's just one continuous line of the 3/8 chenille on the cursive. And when you come to the top, say, for instance, when you come to the top of the P to go down, you just flip that and go down. When you get to the bottom, you flip it and come back up. So that's just one continuous, that writing, cursive writing is one continuous piece of chenille unless you see a break in the writing somewhere. And then I start with another piece. Any other questions? Well, I hope we've given you just a few ideas of the possibilities because it really is, you're really only limited by your imagination. You'll find ways of using, after I've been doing this for, we won't even talk about how many years, and I'm still constantly finding new ways to use it because you'll see something. I drive my husband crazy because I'll be in the Cheesecake Factory and I'll go, oh, look at that design. That's perfect for chenille. So you'll start seeing it everywhere you go. Is Mulqueen with you? Oh, there we
back.
are. You're
Lynette,
back.
that was awesome. I don't know if you saw all those comments, but maybe you're used to having those kind of comments. There was one comment after another how amazing they thought this was to see all of your samples.
We were mostly, I think she was mostly watching for the questions, so we probably missed the comment. But I hope that they can start, just getting just an inkling of the possibilities of what they can do. They can just have a lot of fun.
One of them said they didn't think they would have interest in this product, but after seeing it, now her mind was racing of all the ideas that she could do with it. So that it's amazing how a product like this can, like a lot of people may not know of it, and once they see it, then it's like a whole new world.
Well, I mean, it really is, and you really can't. Until you start seeing some of the possibilities, you really don't realize that something that simple could do so much.
So that it's neat to talk to you about this. I know I've seen you at the Rusty Barns for many years, and I don't think I ever got the full story. And so I love hearing the story of how you got started and came up with this idea. And I saw a lot of comments about questioning if you would do classes. Maybe we need to get together and see if, I don't know if you are still doing classes or
when we get to the point where we can travel and come down. I love to do classes. Yeah, all the quilts can be done as classes. The jackets can be done as classes. There's a lot of things, and they can even do different quilts in the same class. I will teach the techniques and walk them through different quilts in the same class.
Yeah, I know that we have a gal, Siobhan, that works here, that she loves your product. And she's the one that made the quilt or the blanket that's on the table here. And she said, if anybody has questions that's local, you can always come into our Mesa store
she'll be able to help them.
Yep, Siobhan will help you here. If anybody has any questions, they can always email Darren at Mulqueen, and I can get the questions answered for you from either Siobhan or Nanette if it has to go beyond our store. I thank you so much. I am so glad you accepted our invitation to join us because that was wonderful. I know that
well, I hope next time we can do it in person. We can do some classes and have some hands-on workshops.
Yep, that would be great. So I just want to, anybody have any questions before we sign out here? Let's see what Jared's putting on the screen there.
Any last questions? Hopefully we answered a lot of their questions as we went along.
Let's see. Oh yeah. We promised a gift card.
Oh,
And so let's see if I think Jared picked the winner a little bit ago. And the winner is Tammy Simpson. You won a $44 Mulqueen gift card. And hopefully you spend it on Chenille.
now you
We do
have
have
22 colors and
Okay.
2 sizes to choose from.
Oh yes, 3/8 and 5/8.
Right.
A quick question, is a 3/8 best for the inside of the quilt and 5/8 inch for binding?
Yes, you're always going to use the 5/8 inch for the edge for binding. And 3/8 is what's going to give you detail. On the raw edge applique, that's where you're going to use the 3/8.
Do they come in variety packs?
No, it's kind of like thread. I think you're going to find that, you know, if you can kind of start creating a stash with different colors of the 3/8, it's really nice if you have you know, can go to it and just pull it like you pull a spool of thread off your wall.
I'm pretty sure we have all the colors here available.
I think you do. I think you do.
And we have most of those patterns that you had. I think we have all of them. Siobhan knows which ones are the ones to carry, and I think we have all of them that you had shown.
Well,
Let's
and
see.
the patterns all have good instructions in them too on, you know, on the different techniques and the different ways you're using chenille is also going to be in all those patterns.
There's a question there from.
Do you
Uh-oh.
quilt? This was another question about quilting before or after you add your chenille.
I always put the chenille on first. The only time I would put chenille on afterwards is if I'm going to do a really dense, close together quilting. And then I might put the chenille on afterwards. But everything you saw today was the chenille was put on first and it was quilted afterwards. You can do edge to edge over the chenille and it's still going to bloom. Just don't do a really dense, you know, heavy quilting over the chenille or you'll stitch it all down.
And then how many yards are in a roll?
Oh, the 3/8 inch width comes on 25-yard rolls. And the 5/8 inch is on 40-yard rolls. So they, you know, you can do the edge of a baby quilt easily with a roll of chenille.
Wow, yeah.
Remind how many colors are there?
23 colors. And we're always looking for new colors. You know, every once in a while we'll introduce a new color. Right now there are 23 colors and I think you have all those in stock. She can walk over and show you the color card.
Tammy Simpson, if you don't mind to email jer@mulqueen.com to make sure that he gets your email address to send you that gift card. There's all the colors of chenille.
There's all the colors.
Yeah, we need a board like that.
And they are available. We can send you one. We can send you one of those.
That is cool.
I'll
Well,
make sure that you get one of those panels.
well, that was wonderful. I am so glad once again to be with you, Nanette. That was insightful. I think people saw something new, which that's what we're looking for. And also for the people that go to the Rusty Barn and see you, this is just a way to kind of make it feel like the Rusty Barn is happening.
Yeah, we're sorry we're not down in your beautiful sunshine right now. It's pretty cold up here in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
But hopefully next year we'll be back down there where they can see, really come and feel and touch all the quilts.
Yes, for sure. So I do thank you. We're going to sign out and just want to thank you once again. If anybody has any questions on chenille, definitely let us know. And we'll talk to you soon, Nanette.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So that wraps up our day 3 of our virtual expo here in Arizona. The chenille is on sale, Beverly. It's 20% off. If you go to mulqueen.com, the top of our website, I was trying to read that note at the same time. So if you go to mulqueen.com, and then at the very top of our website, there's a banner that talks about all the different people and companies that we have. If you click on that banner and then scroll down to Wednesday, That's where the Chenille link is to the product that we've been talking about. And you'll see the regular price, and then you'll see the sale price in red for this product. The patterns are there. There's a Chenille brush that she has that we put on there. And it says, will this presentation be available later for more inspiration and sharing? It will be. It's going to be it'll live in our Facebook page and our YouTube channel for a while. Our specials will expire on the 31st, so do your shopping by this weekend. And I guess tomorrow, we have so much fun going on tomorrow. We have Kathy Quinn in the morning. The Floriani company, they're very professional. They've been doing such a great job. We have Stabilizer 101 for all embroiderers and any kind of crafter that would use a stabilizer. That is first thing, 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. And then 12 p.m. we have Shannon Fabrics with Cuddle. They're going to do demos and a trunk show on Cuddle fabric. And then at 1:15, Brent from Famore Scissor Company will be live with us. He is the guy behind all scissor kits, pretty much. If you buy a Kimberbell kit of scissors or Floriani, all these different companies. We used to have our own scissor kit. We need to come out with another one, but his company makes all of these scissors. And he has a brand new rotary cutter that is made of tungsten steel that I guess is supposed to last a long time. And the reason why we have him right after Shannon Fabrics is because he has the tools that help work with Shannon Fabrics so well that he asked to be right after. So tomorrow is the only day that we actually have a 12 o'clock and then right to a 1:15 demonstration. And then at 2 p.m. we have Juki. There's a brand new DX4000 Juki that is pretty amazing. And then she's also going to show the sit-down Juki for sit-down quilting with stitch regulation, which is pretty amazing. And then at 4 p.m. is the one and only Sweet Pea Company. The In the Hoop embroidery company will be live with us. They have a special code for everybody to shop and get discounts on Sweet Pea designs and product. They will be on at 4 p.m. tomorrow, so set your timers. Make sure you're here for that. We will be giving away some nice products all tomorrow, all throughout the day, but some special prizes during the Sweet Pea event. It'll be 4 o'clock tomorrow, which amazingly enough will be 9 a.m. the following day for her or for them. And we're going to play a video on how to make one of their most popular in the hoop sewing machine design zippered pouch. So there is a sewing machine pouch with a zipper. We're going to watch a video on how that is done. They're going to share that with us, and then they'll be there with us to answer any questions. So it is a nice day tomorrow. We're going to have a lot of fun. So I hope to see you then. And for tonight, I think that we're having leftovers. Is that right, honey? Janae, are we having leftovers? I think we are. So I hope you all have a nice dinner and relax tonight, and then we will join again tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thank you very much.